Welcome to This is a Revolution, your weekly RevPro podcast with me, Dave the Mark, and the cromulent one, George. Hey, where's George? Fear not, my lovelies, fear not. It is not just an hour or so of me waffling on about Revolution Pro Wrestling, as I always do. George and I have got a plan. It's not just a hat rack team, it's not just a hat rack. So we're going to bring to you a review of the International Women's Grand Prix. We are going to bring to you our thoughts on the weekend, the talent that were involved, whether it can be considered a success or a failure. And together, from one side of the country in Norfolk, in Galston-on-Sea, where the Mark is here with the Mini Marks and Mrs. Mark, all the way across to the south. Do you count as southwest, Georgie boy? You're definitely south, where George is based at work today. Poor sod. Although when you get to see where he works, it ain't all too bad. So between us, we're going to bring you everything you need to know. So over to you, my friend. You watched it on demand. I was there live. What was your takeaways from the show? How did it come across? Did it look like a success? And those kind of headline wide angle view, what did you make of the Women's Grand Prix, bro?
Thanks for the introduction, Dave. I'm here at work, walking around the pond before, and you're probably going to notice at various points of the day it's going to get busier or quieter, basically because I'm going to be recording at various points of the day. It's really strange for me to have Dave doing the introduction, not me doing the introduction, but mate, it is so cool to hear from you. And look, I'm 2 minutes in. I'm babbling already. I don't know what the hell is going on. It's probably because of this wildlife I'm taking in around here. So, Dave, your question about the weekend. I thought it was a really successful weekend. You've got 3 shows, back-to-back days, and the majority of it is a women's show. Okay? And there would have been a time when that would have absolutely bombed. And I mean that both critically from a in-ring point of view, and I think people just their expectations and what they're looking for and think, oh, women can't bring that. And don't get me wrong, I'm still seeing some comments that I'm not keen on, and I've been addressing those quite fervently online because I think the standard of women that we had here was fantastic. You had, whether they were your favourites or not, you had 2 ex-WWE people, decent sized names as well. You've got one of CMLL's top luchadoras, Jungle Kiona, as well. Let's just look at that for a start in terms of international names. You got Kanji, you've got Emerson Jane, you've got names here. And then you've got people like Myla Grace and Corey Zero filling out the card as well. So I thought it was a success. I was really happy with how it went. I wish more tickets been sold, but look, I really can't complain too much because I myself didn't go. I wanted to, but we have to recognise that there are people who want to go to these things, can't go to these things for various reasons. I'm going to address something in a separate video, I think, with some of the issues people seem to have regarding this weekend, which didn't turn out to be this weekend specific, turned out to be RevPro specific. So yeah, overall, mate, I really thought the weekend was great. I thought we had a lot of great matches. I thought it told some really great stories in there as well, and didn't just set us up for show 1, just didn't set us up for show 2. Show 2 didn't just set us up for Coventry, it set us up way beyond that. Also, really funnily, I just heard someone say, oh, look, we're in London now because I'm recording myself. Whoops. Now, one of the questions that we always seem to come back to, so I'm going to ask you, Dave. I was at home watching. You were there live. Was it a success from your point of view?
That's a complicated one, mate, to be honest, because there's a fair few different metrics we need to look at to see how much of a success it was live. From attendance, obviously, to on-demand subscribers and views, to online socials, interactions, how popular were the meet and greets and stuff like that. How did it come across on the feed?
So on stream, I thought it came across really well. Like, you've got the bits where you can see that some of the seating isn't as full as it is for a normal show, and that kind of takes away from it a little bit because of how it comes across. I imagine in the room that probably took away from the atmosphere a bit as well, and a show that deserves more atmosphere than it got, and not because the people there didn't put the atmosphere in, they absolutely did. Everyone that was there live put a shift in that regard. Just I wish there was more people there. And no, I'm not getting paid by RevPro for anyone that suggests that. So on screen, it came across really well. I thought all of the matches were great. I thought the camera work, as it always, was great. There was the very funny moment when Corey Zero's music continued playing and the camera was focused right on Francesca's face, and you could see she was trying not to laugh. But yeah, that was quite an interesting moment. But I thought it came across really well. My favourite moment actually of the whole show, and I thought it must be coming at some point. Sorry if my camera's moving around quite a lot. My arm is getting sore. I'm not used to this. One of the moments that I thought was really great was when Myla Grace and Kanji were in the ring and they're about to count the bell, and you're like, surely they can't be going this route, because if they did go that route, I would have been super critical. But they didn't. They went the correct route, and that was making you believe all the way through. And that's the sign of a good show as well, is that you don't want to swerves for the sake of swerves. And we spoke about this. We spoke about that, didn't we? Swerves for the sake of swerves. So what I thought was, Kanji had this opportunity, okay? And it's got taken away from him. We expected that at some point. And I think we were expecting it in the way of maybe like Sky Smithson or someone winning that first match and taking it by injuring Kanji, potentially setting up a Shayna Baszler win, I think was or certainly a theory posited and discussed by us on our podcast. But that didn't make sense, knowing that Wembley was going to be the destination and all of this sort of stuff. And I would say about 2 or 3 points through the show, I got worked into different things that was going to happen. At one point, I was convinced that Kanji was going to win. At one point, I was convinced Shayna was going to win. At one point, I was convinced it was going to be Zeuxis, maybe. And Kanji and Shayna were going to have a match at Wembley. So there's all these different threads that were going through. And then they got to that final piece where Myla Grace wasn't the name I expected to win that opening match. And I was like, this is interesting. So when she was the person put in the main event, I thought, they've always presented her as like a really lovely person. That's how Myla's always been perceived in RevPro. So I thought maybe, just maybe, they're going to go with it. But I was also waiting for Oscar to say, ring the bell. Or whoever it was in the final match. I can't remember. I think it was Oscar. And they did it exactly the way, I think, in that scenario, you have to do it. And I think they did it perfectly. And the camera shot was on, it said ring the bell, and literally said ring the bell. Kanji's music came on, and from the angle that the camera presented it at, it looked really, really cool. It kind of reminded me a little bit of John Cena, Madison Square Garden 2000 and something. I want to say 2008, could be wrong on the year, when he came back, that Royal Rumble, and you've just got like the camera shot on it is perfect. The video comes up, all of that jazz. Like, yeah, I was really happy with how it came across. Now, mate, you're a metrics man. I know that. I know you love your stats. You love everything like that. You love all your numbers and all that jazz. And you've got quite a unique insight, because not only are you Mr. RevPro that goes to shows and watches everything and all of that, but you do some behind the scenes stuff. You have some metrics that you can pull on. So what did you notice from the Women's Grand Prix this weekend?
Well, mate, I will say I'm pleased that it came across as a success in terms of the on-demand. The service is getting better all the time, you know. We've got to remember this is the little engine that could. And progress comes slowly, and it comes through investment, and investment comes through ticket sales and on-demand subscribers. So it's all one and the same, right? I'll say from a live perspective, my very first thoughts walking into the hangar were not great. It was, there are not a lot of seats laid out for this. Not a patch on how many there were for the first hangar show, which saw Diona Perazzo and Kanji, Manders and Oku, Hechicero and Zazaya. Nowhere near the numbers that were there for Mercedes Monet versus Sapphire. I'd say less than there were for Fantastica Mania. Definitely less than there were for Fantastica Mania. And it is what it is. Like, everybody from Michael Oku to fans online will have their opinion on it. I don't want to get into the dirt of it, but this is kind of my take on it, mate. You've got a massive weekend of women's wrestling in the middle of the country that's accessible easy from north and south if you're a travelling fan. Some people aren't, some people just go to where it's local. Each to their own. People work within their means. But for those of us that make the treks around the country, this is as good a place as any. In fact, probably better than most, because people in the north will complain if it's in London. People in the south will complain if it's up in Doncaster or, Sheffield, somewhere like that. Wolves is a good spot for it. You've got a venue which is set up so that you could have a couple of hundred, you could have 500, you could push it up towards 1,000. They'll fit if the fans come. And, alas, the fans came, but nowhere near as many as they would have been hoping for, especially when you look at the layout they've made for this show. You've got Jessica Troy coming in from Australia. I know she's hanging around for a couple of weeks. I know she's doing some stuff in other companies around Europe, so costs there would likely have been split. But you've got Shayna Baszler coming in, you've got Zoe Serrano coming in, you've got Jungle Kiona coming in. You've got Corey Zero, Myla Grace, JGU coming in. These guys all come in with a flight, right? A flight and a hotel, and they're the costs. That's what makes or breaks these shows. So on that side of it, a little disappointed that there weren't more people there. Off my high horse for a minute. Circumstances are different for different people. I get that. For me, it's those people that will give it the big one online, saying that, there needs to be more women's wrestling, who then have the means to, but choose not to buy a ticket for it, which shows that maybe the demand is there online, but maybe the demand isn't there in person. But that isn't the only metric we're going to look at this show from, right? So that is what it is. And, there's going to be all sorts of conversation about that. You've then got other metrics. So you've got, what was the engagement of the fans like in the hangar? I'm glad it came across well on demand, because it came across well in the venue. They were a little bit slow to get going. Felt a little bit sorry for the Alternates 4-way that opened the show. But at the same time, I've got things that people have said to me, wrestlers have said to me over the years as well, which ring true in my head, that wrestling's measured in decibels. There's no such thing as a bad crowd. If the crowd are quiet, go and wake them up. Things like this. So maybe that's one where in hindsight, those guys could look at it and be like, maybe if they could be a little bit more vocal in the ring, in terms of, you look at someone like a Kanji, she is always making noise, and the noisier it is in the ring, the noisier the crowd are. It doesn't have to be the other way around. It shouldn't be that the crowd are noisy, so it makes the wrestlers noisy. It should come from the wrestlers. And, maybe you mix things up a little bit, and you take the action to the crowd to wake them up a little bit. By 2/3 into the match, the crowd were going. And once they got going, they stayed going for the whole day, which is fantastic. So no shade on the wrestlers involved in that opening match whatsoever. Just simply, hindsight is beautiful in 2020, isn't it? You then had the rest of the first show, which was like a good vocal crowd, really engaged crowd, no negativity, all positivity, all supporting the wrestlers, booing the heels, cheering the faces, having a good time, you know, engagement. Second show even louder, but I think that's not in a reflection of anything other than the fact that fans are like well up for it by this point. I'd say the crowd was pretty much exactly the same from one show to the other, to the point where you have to leave halfway through. You have to give up your seat, take your stuff with you, come back for the next show, because it is an entirely different crowd in theory. Everybody came in for the second show, just sat in the same seat they were in for the first show. It was so easy. And that's good, because that means, you know, fans are there for the whole day. RevPro have obviously got the value for money of the dual tickets together. I know that there'll be people out there that say that they overcharge for their front row tickets. You know, 110 quid to sit front row is a lot of money. But it's front row, and it's 2 shows, and you have to pay that premium. That's Andy's philosophy on it, and I get that. What I will say is you could get, for 40 quid, you could get a fantastic seat. You just might have had 2 people sitting in front of you. That's 40 quid for 2 shows of international women's talent. So I won't kind of see that one as a negative, if I'm honest. But what I will say is that loads of people took up that opportunity to get 2 shows for the price of, you know, 1 ticket. And the quality of the wrestling, mate. The quality of the wrestling was exceptional. So JGU, in terms of the tournament wrestlers, JGU's been wrestling 2 years. Everybody else has got a decade of experience in them. And like, that is such a rare feat to have, especially in women's wrestling, anywhere around the world, to have women who have been wrestling for 10 years that are not signed up to a contract somewhere that you can use at an independent show is amazing. And I'll just say for JGU, you would not know that she only had 2 years experience compared to the other people in the tournament, because her matches were exceptional. So in ring, it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. One of my favourite shows of the year. The on demand sounds like it looked good. I'd imagine it did good numbers, because from what I understand from conversations with people in wrestling, on demand women's matches, women's shows tend to do quite well. And the metrics that obviously I get to see is running the Instagram channel for RevPro. I get to see the numbers that end, and RevPro hasn't had this level of engagement since last year's anniversary show. So, you know, you've got a huge boost from this weekend's wrestling in terms of social media engagement. Whilst that didn't necessarily translate to ticket sales, hopefully it translated to on demand. And, you know, that's a revenue of its own. And the more that grows, all that money goes back into RevPro. So lots and lots of positives, mate. Absolutely lots and lots of positives. And I fully expect us to see the Grand Prix run again next year, and it not just be a one-off. Andy doesn't do knee-jerk decisions and reactions. Maybe this didn't sell as well as he would have liked. I mean, it definitely didn't sell as well as he would have liked, but that doesn't mean that it's seen as a net failure, doesn't happen again. It will come back for sure. Maybe it'll be a different town. Maybe it'll be a different time of year. Maybe it will be a different cost of talent that are involved. I don't know. He knows that. But there'll be the things he's thinking about right now. From an in the venue experience, if I look at it purely from a fan rather than a fan who volunteers for the company, I was very, very pleased, very much enjoyed the entire process, and I would say it's up there with one of the best RevPro shows of the year, and definitely my favourite RevPro weekend of the year so far.
So my next question for you, Dave, is which import was the import of the weekend for you? I thought they were great, and I thought they were all great in their own right. For me, Corey Zero was the one that I really, really, really wanted in RevPro. So glad she was given her opportunities. Sucks that I'm not going to be there for London. Again, another show I can't make. This is what saving for Japan does to you. But hey, She's getting another opportunity in RevPro as well. That is great. I think she showed out at the weekend. What about you?
Yeah, Corey Zero, mate. I enjoyed her. You can see there's a lot of potential there, right? And the more experiences she gets on these sort of like bigger stages with higher quality talent, the better that's going to come. What I would say is like she's got a fantastic set of moves that already look like really, really well nailed down. On top of that, she's got presence, she's got strong entrance, which a lot of these European wrestlers do. She's got a kind of a sense of direction in terms of who she's trying to come across as that I liked. She's out on merch, she's talking to fans, all of that sort of stuff's good in terms of like building a connection. Definitely want to see more of her. Andy said she's going to be in London. I don't know if he will have announced who she'll be facing by the time this comes out or not. But I'm really, really curious to see that. What I would like is to see her in the ring with somebody with, like, mate, I'll tell you what I'd like. I'd like to see her in the ring with Emerson Jane. Because Emerson Jane had an absolutely banging weekend. Two of the best Emerson Jane singles matches I've seen. Crazy to think that she'd like just flown in for the show and would have been jet lagged and knackered because she was absolutely fucking awesome. I'd love to see Emerson Jane and Corey Zero one-on-one, because what I'd like is to see Corey in there with someone who is top level, and I really rate Emerson as that. And I'd like to see how she comes across in that circumstance. In terms of like my overall MVP in terms of the women that were imported for the show, let's have a little look at who we got. So Jessica Troy was absolutely fantastic, mate. Like, she deserves a massive shout out. Her match with Kanji was awesome. Her match with Emerson Jane was awesome. And again, you've then got like, she's in the ring with two of the best in the world. No hyperbole there, mate, at all. Like, we don't rate people, wrestlers on a curve. We're rating them as we see them, and we see people from all over the world in Revolution Pro Wrestling. And we've seen, excuse me, we've seen a lot of wrestlers who have had big time contracts and things like that come in, and they can't lace up Kanji and Emerson Jane's boots, mate. So genuinely, two of the best in the world, and she looked quality against them. The match with Corey Zero on Sunday was one of the like most popular matches of that show. For me, I didn't enjoy it as much, but that's me, mate. It was a little bit more sequenced. It was a little bit more put together and felt a little bit less organic. And that's always, that's one of my little things in wrestling. I'm always going to choose the very, very real, authentic, dirty, gritty wrestling over anything that could be considered to have spots in it. But don't get me wrong, it was still one of the best matches on the card. It was still one of the best matches of the weekend. It's just other people loved it more than me. I would say that Jessica's probably the MVP of the weekend, in the sense that she delivered a lot more than I'd expected, simply because I didn't know her, and I was well impressed. But mate, Shayna Baszler and Zoe Serrano, like, we get people come in from other countries. We get people come in who have had the WWE contract, the AEW contract. They've been in TNA. They've been all over the place. Sometimes they deliver, sometimes they don't. We've had people before, and genuinely I'm sitting there and I'm watching it and I'm thinking, bring them back. Bring them back any opportunity. Anytime they say they're going to be in the UK, sign them up. Sometimes we get people and I sit there thinking, they weren't worth it. They weren't worth the hotel, let alone the flight. They came over and put in a half-assed shift, or there's no charisma. There's nothing special about them. Well, there's something special about Shayna Baszler and Zoe Serrano. Like, Shayna Baszler, like, it's You don't need a mark like me to tell you how good she is, right? She is 10 years wrestling, 10 years MMA. She is top draw. Her NXT run was up there with the best of anyone in any promotion of any period. Main roster stuff, yeah, I never felt like she was utilised as well as she should have been. She should have been a top name. But that ain't on her. She don't choose how she's booked. So she's come over. She's worked JGU, best JGU match so far. She's worked Kanji, for my money, match of the weekend. She's then worked a tag match in the main event on the Sunday, told a great story for it, put in an absolute shift, engaged with the fans, bantered the fans. Like, everything that she does looks excellent. Zoe Serrano, I knew she was good, but you don't always know how good somebody is till you see them live. And like, I was lucky, I got to sit front row in the hangar. And when you're seeing people and you're seeing how close their ducked clotheslines go over somebody's head, you see how hard everything hits. She hit JGU so hard that JGU looked like she was going to wet herself. It's every little detail. She came out early on in the hangar, and you could see that she'd seen backstage that the crowd weren't that loud. So she came out and she got going immediately, literally, not begging for it, just lifting everybody. One thing I was really surprised at, mate, there were loads of contenders there in the hangar, but where were the female contenders? So when I say contender, I mean like Portsmouth School of Wrestling trainee. To my knowledge, there are at least 3 women down in the Portsmouth School of Wrestling. If I was any of those 3, I would be giving anything I could to have been there on Sunday, to sit and watch and learn at ringside from the very best women in the world, to get to have a brief conversation, ask for a little bit of advice, ask for a little bit of, guidance. And they're very young girls, mate, don't get me wrong, but that's like such an opportunity. And for anyone who did get to be backstage, from your Amira Blairs to your Kanjis, your Emersons, your JGUs, Corey Zero, Violet Knight, etc. Like, they would have all taken something. If they were paying attention and they cared and they want to get better, as you trust that they all do, they would have all taken stuff from Zoe Serrano, and they would have taken stuff from Shayna Baszler, because they are top tier. If AEW don't sign Zoe Serrano, I will be very, very surprised, mate, because she is far too good an in-ring talent with a hunger and a passion. You could see that. Honestly, mate, it literally radiated off of her. You could see how hungry and up for it she was. She's far too good to not be contracted. So, for me, I would say, if I had to pick one, I'd pick Zoe Serrano as my MVP of the weekend. Jessica Troy as my biggest net positive surprise of the weekend. Shayna Baszler as like the star power weekender. Like, I got to see Shayna Baszler live. Bucket list moment for me. But yeah, Zoe overall, mate. So, my one for you then, if you've asked about MVPs from that side of it, who was your MVP of the people who came into RevPro this weekend but didn't come in from the other side of the world? Violet Knight, JGU Corey Zero, Lucy Sky. Who stood out from that batch for you, mate?
Well, it looks like I already preempted part of your question there, mate. So what was my thoughts on Violet Knight, Lucy Sky, Corey Zero, and JGU? Okay. I have long been saying that Lucy Sky and Corey Zero should be in RevPro, right? I'm going to potentially rehash old ground here if I go over a lot of that, but I think Corey Zero in those 2 shows, 3 shows actually, sorry, including commentary, in those 3 shows showed why she should have been in RevPro much sooner. And I heard Andy on commentary say that she walked into the Portsmouth School of Wrestling 18 months ago. We should have had her sooner than that. However, I thought they did very well. I thought Corey's match with Jessica Troy in particular was incredible. That really, really great match. Lucy Sky, again, really like. What I will say is Lucy Sky is so good as a heel that while she doesn't come across as a pushover by any stretch, I really want to see her lean into that side a bit more. And if she is going to be a babyface, then I just want to see a bit more of what I see of her and Eve. She's very good at getting under people's skins. She's very good, very aggressive in the ring. But again, like, she's showing people why she deserves to be in RevPro, and I'm glad she got such a prominent spot. Then we've got Violet Knight, who has impressed me with what I've seen of her and Eve. 21 years old. So still loads of room for development there. I think she's got a good look. I think, she's very good with what I've seen of her in the ring. I think she's got a bright future in the industry, and I'm glad to see her in RevPro. And it'll be nice to see how she gets used over the coming months, whether or not she's a face that pops up whenever they do Coventry or maybe Cardiff or something like that to fit in with the new wave connection in the area, maybe. And then JGU, I thought this was a fantastic weekend for JGU, actually. Her matches were great. Like, she just looked great whenever she was out there, but she seems even more assured as a character now, and how she comes across as a personality, how she talks and everything like that. I was really impressed, just like I said, by how well-rounded she's become now. We know she can go in the ring. We know she's fantastic in the ring. I didn't think she looked out of place in her match with Shayna either, which she could have done. I was really intrigued actually to see that she wasn't the person that saved Corey Zero. And I know I spoke about that last time, was that Corey and JGU, French Art in Eve, and Violet Knight and Sky Smithson, Night Sky. And we got that reunion in RevPro. So I was kind of expecting JGU to be the person that came out to save Corey Zero. But actually we got Amira, which was a nice little wrinkle as well. But I've got a question for you. What was your match of the weekend? I mean, for me, there was loads of great matches. So I am a bit stuck, but I'm probably going to go with a bit of a cheat code here. I'm picking two. For me, it's either if we're looking at it on the women's weekend, from a just pure in-ring, Jessica Troy and Kanji. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And if we're looking at Coventry, Jessica Troy and Corey Zero. Notice the link there. Portchester Hall, you're in for a treat.
I can't really argue with any of that. Violet Knight definitely has a lot of upside, very young, like raw potential there. But what I really liked was like how crisp all her work was. That doesn't normally come so quickly. That comes a little bit later. But she was beyond her years there, I thought. Like really, really good opening contest for her, like in terms of auditions for Andy. Spoke about Corey earlier, but for Lucy, I did feel like this was a much better showing than in Sheffield. She just looked, say it all the time, second match in a company, in RevPro at least, often you find people, they're just that little bit more comfortable, they've kind of got the lay of the land, they've maybe got over the pre-match nerves a little bit more, and I thought she delivered really, really well. It was a really fitting main event. My worry was that with all the star power of the tournament, Alexis and Lucy might not be the main event people were looking for, but it worked, mate. It absolutely worked, and any hesitance or doubt I had, which really came from I want it to go well, always, were put to bed really, really early. Alexis Falcon is fucking phenomenal, mate, isn't she? And Lucy Sky was a great opponent for her. So to answer your question, bro, in terms of match of the weekend, that's a big question. I'm going to cheat, of course I am. Everything that involved Kanji on Saturday. Like, the one tournament story, mate, like, think about this. Andy's he's an old school WWF mark. This was his opportunity to book a King of the Ring. This was his opportunity to tell a one-night story. He would have been planning this, like, in his head for years before he actually got a chance to deliver it. And Kanji's like the perfect foil because she's such a modern-day Bret Hart. Her opening match with Jessica Troy was brilliant. Like, the way, like, she came out, she had tape on the shoulder, so she's pointing out, you know, I'm working an injury here a little bit. She's selling the Iron Fist match. She put Jessica Troy over something mad because you thought, like, oh, she's showing us the shoulder injury, so when she gets into work with Shayna's going to brutalise her. It's like, no, Jessica, like, fucking ruined her. Then she gets to Shayna. They told a great story. Like, if that match finish had been just a little bit more satisfying, you know, and I completely understand why it weren't. It was part of the story. It weren't the final chapter, it was the middle chapter. But had it been more satisfying, that would be top 10 match of the year. Easy. So for me, that's the match of the weekend. But then the main event that she had with Zeuxis, like, I feel like it could have had a minute or two more, if I'm honest. And I rarely say that, mate, don't I? I'm always clamouring for shorter matches, not longer matches. But I felt like that one could have had a minute or two more. But it fitted in so well with the story of the day. So for me, yeah, Kanji and Shayna, but with everything that was involving Kanji throughout, yeah, 100%, mate. And then from the Sunday, Robbie and Luke won it, but you kind of felt that was always going to be the case. What for you were sort of like your main, like, wrap up of Coventry, all your little takeaways, all the, you know, we love the details, mate, don't we? We absolutely love looking at all the little details and seeing where it's going. So what from Coventry jumped out for you, mate?
So when it comes to Coventry, I've got a few takeaways from this weekend. Number one, firstly, watch it with the roundup, interviews, reactions. That's the word I'm looking for, reactions. There were little things this week that even if you are someone who's so hyper detail focused, that was so nuanced, that you might not have picked up on when you're watching. I'm sure Dave has. I'm talking about HMD in particular here. However, go and watch it. It was good. It fills in a few blanks and elevates it that little bit more. Great matches all round. I thought Corey Zero versus Jessica Troy was fantastic. Again, can't sing praises hardly enough about them. Myla Grace turning on Kanji. I think most people probably expected it, given the way the main event happened on Saturday afternoon, evening. But it was great to see because it shows a bit of character development there as well. The other thing, just literally before I came out of lunch, read the sad news that Ethan Allen isn't going to be at Wembley. Sucks, man. Absolutely sucks. I really feel for him. Like, I know I've said multiple times that's my dream match. Literally was my dream match in wrestling. Still is. God, this is getting tiring on the arm again. So, yeah, it sucks loads, but it sucks more for him more than anyone else because he fucking deserves it. The guy has worked his ass off since coming back. I am a notable Luke Jacobs fan, but that was before or after Ethan got hurt. I really started paying attention to Luke. Never really paid much attention to Young Guns before that. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. That being said, I did say today, I sent my text during Robbie and Luke, I said, hey, if Ethan can't make it, maybe that's who we bring in, because RevPro always stated that it'd be for the belts if Young Guns retained the titles. So I don't necessarily see Cowboy Way getting switched around. I see a replacement partner coming in. And some people will suggest Tom Thelwell. I thought Robbie would be a great inclusion in there as well. There must be something planned for Robbie, of course, but if not, that would be the way to go, I think. Or get one of Luke's biggest rivals, Tomohiro Ishii. Now, Dave, was there anything from Coventry that you felt I missed or that is really worth noting that I haven't covered yet?
So in terms of like everything else that needs to be talked about from Coventry, there's quite a few little bits and pieces which kind of caught my eye. the fact that we had a contenders match, which was going to be contender versus contender, like that's the first in this new wave of contenders. And then the fact that Oku got involved and made it into a tag match, and we had Isaac then going up against Elvin in Chicago. Like, first little seeds of tension between the three new contenders. So there's like a nice little detail there which can be played upon. Bigger would be everything going on between Jay Joshua, Connor Mills, and Leon Cage. I'm quite enjoying this. I said in my little kind of spoilers video that I do after the show that it gave me quite a lot of vibes of when Mad Kurt, Zach Knight, and Ricky Knight Jr. tagged together, in the way that Jay's looking to protect Leon from Mills because Mills ain't happy with him. But in this one, we had Mills being the one who kind of warmed towards Leon, kind of found him almost sort of like amusing in a way, or at least kind of saw the lighter side, and he didn't make it too deep. But Leon's getting under Jay's skin a little bit, and the backstage reaction for that one's really, really good and really, really worth watching, because Jay's effectively calling on the fact that Leon he's got like the whole world ahead of him. He's about to go off to Mexico. He is, you know, being hotly tipped for a very bright future. But he's kind of making a little bit of a mockery of everything that's happening right now, and that he's distracting Jay from what should be Jay's focus on Zack Sabre Jr. So I quite like that. The one that really kind of caught me, if I'm honest, is the whole like JJ Gale, TK Cooper thing, because the match I really enjoyed. The finish I know you weren't so keen on. And I know that like that goes very much against what happened the week before in Bradford. And I quite like that, because ultimately what we're doing is we're saying that the ref can only call it when the ref sees it. And Oscar saw it in Bradford, but he didn't see it in Coventry. I get that. That's absolutely fine. It feeds into TK's narrative of the fact that the world's against him, RevPro's against him. And he sympathised with him on the wrap-up. So that worked quite well, because now how does TK spin that? But it's kind of got me thinking more about, like, where are we going with this? And the fact that Francisco came out and attacked TK and was then giving it the large one, saying, I'm nothing like TK Cooper. I can't see where we're going with it, which I'm more than okay with, because I trust the process and I know that there's always direction, even when you can't see it straight away. It's just, will they get there, and are they planning to get there in time for Wembley? Or does this throw a question mark over these guys' involvement at Wembley? I suppose my kind of question for you then, bro, is we've got 3 shows left. We've got London this Sunday, then we're down in Southampton for a week, then we're in Cardiff, and then there's a week off, and then it's anniversary show. So 4 weeks to go, 3 shows to go. For you, what needs to happen between now and the anniversary show to make it as successful as possible? Storyline-wise and business-wise, mate, to be honest. Bit of both.
For me, I think what needs to happen between now and Wembley is quite simple. I think you just need to carry on with the match announcements. They're starting to go down really nicely. We're starting to see a real picture unfolding. Last year, look, as a fan, I didn't like the way they did it. Andy's explained the rationale behind it. And look, I get it from a business point of view. And I think we need to balance business with what fans want, especially in an economy that is getting so hard and harder to have spare cash to spend on anything. So if you want people to part with their money and come to, so far, the show tracking to be the biggest independent wrestling crowd at Wembley, give them more and more of that. And we've seen it, we keep seeing it. So carry on doing that. That's going down really well. For me, the other thing is who slides into the spot that Ethan left. I'm not going to say replace, because you can't replace Ethan Allen, but who slides into that spot? That's what we want to know now, and that will be a question that's on everyone's lips. Now, Dave, I suppose the question I've got to ask is, with Wembley looming and seeing more and more matches get made official, who do you see missing out? Because this is a hard one, because there's names that I was seeing for a while that I would expect to be there in some ways, like Dave Francisco and TK Cooper, who now seem to be embroiled in something. And I remember when they announced Young Guns, I've said multiple times that Andy can give me an hour-long TK Cooper, Dave Francisco, who's been most hard done by promo battle, and I'll be fine with that. Well, looks like that might have started in commentary, so you're welcome, RevPro fans. But seriously, like, who is there that could still miss out? I think there's got to be clear paths for someone like JJ, for someone like David, for someone like TK. You've got to think Chuck Mambo is there as well. You've got to think that Robbie X is there. So who do you think is going to miss out?
Mate, you're right, mate. It's absolutely devastating what's happened with Ethan Allen, and like, first and foremost, like, thoughts and condolences with him, because that's fucking, how's your luck, right? 4 times he's done that ACL in, well, 25 years old, so he's been wrestling for probably 10 years, but like wrestling at a top level for 5 or 6 years, and in that time he's missed off that time through these injuries, and it's just, it is what it is. It's rubbish. I think you're right. I think that needs to be addressed as quickly as possible. It's going to be quite hard to do storyline wise, so I think the first thing that needs to be made super clear to everybody is that FTR are still, like, definitely happening. Even if you can't confirm who they're against or how it's going to play out, but to say FTR definitely still at Wembley, by the way. Then you've got to establish, is Luke in that match? And are we doing FTR versus Luke and Felwell, or Luke and Robbie, as you suggested? Or are we shifting gears and we're going to go to FTR versus Cowboys? Like, is that what needs to happen? You don't need to kind of clarify it immediately, but we need to know that FTR are still going to be there, and then we need to know that like, we're heading in the right direction. I think you're right that we've got a real need to kind of like keep this momentum going in terms of announcements. You don't want people you don't want negativity prior to Wembley. There's a lot on the play so far. There's a lot on there already, and then on top of that, you've got the fact that it's not exactly stacked yet in terms of international names, and there'll be a lot of people that are looking for international names. So it's now just looking at where, when and where. It's almost like you want a blueprint laid out of when each match can be announced, and you don't want it all coming out of Cardiff. So we need something after London this week, we need something after Southampton next week, and we do it that way, and I think that's the best route there. So who's looking like they could miss out? Mate, you mentioned Chuck Mambo. I don't see Chuck Mambo being on this card in any sense, I'm afraid. No one's going to come in my eyes, and wrestle on this card that hasn't wrestled all year. It then puts a massive question mark over, like, Ricky Knight Jr. We haven't seen him for a couple of months, so he's not involved in anything. The only way I can see him being involved is as an entry into some form of gauntlet or rumble that gets loads of people on the card. The same can be said for your Josh Jameses, your Kelly Six, Leland Bryant, Xander Bryant, Josh Holly, James Ellis, all these guys. Like, it's hard to see how they're going to get a spotlight match. So I can only imagine that it's going to be a number in a multi-person match, or their role is simply seconding Nino, Leighton to the ring for their contests. What have we got so far, mate? Let me run this through in my head. We've got 4 title matches. So that's 40% of your card sorted. You then got Jay and Zach, Liam and Leon, 60% of the card done. There'll be a second women's match, 70% of the job done. I can't imagine that second women's match is going to be a singles match unless the women are involved in a third match, because you're going to want the likes of Emerson Jane on the card, Rio on the card. I don't see those two facing off against each other. I can see the women being a way of getting other talent from other companies involved. So there's potentially there a 7th match, because you're including one from the women's division, and an 8th match where you're going to feature the rest of the women, or as I pitched it in my deep dive, a non-gender specific rumble where you can feature men and women to fill out the divisions. I think realistically we're talking about maybe at most, I think, one more singles match. Does JJ Gal get the singles match? Does Robbie X get the singles match? If Luke Jacobs can't partner Ethan Allen, does Luke Jacobs get the singles match? People are going to miss out here, mate. Or there's going to be a clusterfuck match, which features as many people as possible. Or it's going to go 6 hours long and he's going to put in an 11th or 12th match. I'm not sure which one. All I can say there, mate, is I wouldn't want to be Andy Quilden. And if I was a wrestler in RevPro right now, whether I'm TK Cooper, JJ Gal, whether I'm Robbie X, whether I'm literally anyone who doesn't have a confirmed match or a very clear direction, for example, Manders and Shire don't have a very clear direction, but everything is pointing towards them being involved because they've got championships around their waists. So unless I'm one of these guys, I'd be wanting to know what's happening for me in the next 3 weeks so that I can see my path there, mate. It's going to be an interesting one, mate. It's going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. We'll see what comes to London this Sunday, shall we, mate?
And there we have it, another episode of This is Revolution, brought to you by nature this week, because we're having some lovely weather. Dave's down by the seaside, I'm working, unfortunately, but I have this lovely area to walk through, so I'm making the most of it. Thank you all for watching, thank you all for listening. Please do all the usuals. Please go onto YouTube if you're watching there, give it a like. Please, if you're on Spotify, give it a like, give it a 5-star review. Subscribe on all platforms that you're on, leave comments, please. Like, we love all that stuff. It really helps us grow. We're trying to get to that magical 200 number, something in the bushes. So everything that you guys do will really, really help push us along. So please, if you like what we do, just engage with what we're doing. Leave comments about what you agree with, what you disagree with, or even anything that you'd like to see us do in the future. Just let us know. Until then, we're out of there.